The winter fog lingered over London as though the city itself wished to obscure the sins and secrets it had whispered for years. Carriages rolled through the streets toward Hawthorne Manor, their wheels hissing against damp cobblestones. Inside one of them sat Lady Evelyn Harrow, her gloved hands folded so tightly that the fabric strained at the seams. She had imagined this night 1,000 times in the quiet of her confinement, yet nothing in her imagination had prepared her for the weight of returning to a world that had already judged her. The lantern's glow carved soft light along her cheek, revealing the faint tremor of a woman who had learned to hold her breath for too long. Her aunt, Lady Mortimer, sat rigid beside her, a spine of iron beneath layers of silk. "You will keep your eyes lowered," she instructed for the 3rd time. "London forgets nothing, Evelyn. One false step, and your father will blame me for bringing you out too soon." Evelyn nodded, though her pulse hammered not from fear of missteps but from the crushing knowledge that she was no longer considered a woman of grace or promise. 5 years inside those shuttered rooms had hollowed her reputation and her reflection. Even now, she felt as though she were made of delicate ash, ready to crumble at the slightest wind of disapproval. Yet beneath the fear lived a spark, small, fragile, rebellious, aching for air. The carriage halted. The manor rose before them, windows blazing with the light of 100 candles and 100 expectations. Music drifted out in warm waves, the hum of violins carrying the promise of delight for all who belonged. Evelyn touched the side of her gown, a pale blue silk her aunt had insisted upon, not too bold, not too meek, though she felt invisible inside it, a ghost wearing borrowed beauty. As they stepped inside, the ballroom unfolded in a shimmer of gold. Chandeliers dripped like stars above the swirling assembly. Perfume, laughter, and the faint bite of gossip hung in the air. Every eye seemed to turn toward her, or perhaps she only feared they did. A few ladies gasped softly, fans fluttering with predatory grace. One whispered to another, and though their words were meant to be concealed, Evelyn heard them clearly. 5 years gone. I thought she had taken ill. Another voice, colder. Ill? Nonsense. Her scandal was quite the talk. Not that anyone was permitted to speak of it aloud. Evelyn's chest tightened. She lowered her gaze, the world blurring into polished floors and gliding hems. She had been warned that whispers would follow her, but the intimacy of their cruelty pierced deeper than she had anticipated. Still, she forced herself to stand tall. If she broke now, the night would devour her whole. Then, across the ballroom, a subtle shift ran through the air like a drawn breath. A presence entered, not with fanfare, but with a gravity that bent the attention of the room. The Duke of Ravensshire had arrived. His military years had carved authority into every line of his frame. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in stark black that contrasted the brilliance around him, he seemed carved from the very shadows that clung to the edges of the ballroom. His eyes moved with disarming precision, as if nothing escaped his notice. And when his gaze fell upon Evelyn, she felt the jolt of being truly seen for the first time in years. He did not look away. Heat flushed through her at the audacity of it. No pity. No disdain. Something else entirely. Curiosity tinged with something sharper, something almost protective. She tried to lower her eyes, but her body betrayed her. Her gaze lifted again, drawn back to him like a tide pulled by unseen moons. Lady Mortimer noticed. "Do not stare," she hissed. "Men of his stature do not linger on ruined girls." The words, though cold, were not meant to wound. Yet they did. Evelyn swallowed. She attempted to turn away, to disappear into the edges of the ballroom where shadows offered mercy. But as she took her first step, a group of impeccably dressed ladies intercepted her path. Their smiles were polished porcelain, gleaming, brittle, false. "Well," said one, adjusting a pearl bracelet, "Lady Evelyn returns at last. We had almost forgotten your face." Another leaned closer, voice dripping sweetness that masked sharp delight. "Your gown is charming. One can hardly see the years at all." Before Evelyn could reply, a third reached out as though to compliment the silk of her sleeve. With a swift, practiced flick, she caught the fabric and tore it. The sound was soft, barely the whisper of cloth surrendering, but to Evelyn it thundered like a cannon. The silk ripped just enough to expose the pale skin beneath and the faint scar she had fought to conceal. A wave of gasps spiraled outward. Fans snapped open. Whispers crackled like embers. Evelyn froze. Her breath vanished. Shame flooded through her, hot and choking. The scar, a mark of sacrifice and survival, now gleamed under cruel candlelight like a brand of disgrace. Her aunt stepped back, too shocked to intervene. The ladies watched with triumphant satisfaction. Evelyn felt the sting of tears rising, desperate not to fall in front of the very world that had sentenced her in absence. Then a voice cut through the murmurs, deep and unmistakably firm. Enough. The word struck the air like a command on a battlefield. The crowd parted with instinctive obedience. The Duke of Ravensshire strode forward, his expression carved from steel. Without a moment's hesitation, he removed his black handkerchief, embroidered with the Ravensshire crest, and wrapped it gently around Evelyn's exposed arm. His touch was steady, reassuring, entirely devoid of the revulsion others had displayed. He turned his gaze on the offending ladies. A gentleman defends the vulnerable. I trust London society has not forgotten this virtue. His tone was courteous, yet the underlying warning was unmistakable. The ladies paled, retreating like shadows pierced by sudden flame. Evelyn could not breathe. The room seemed suspended, all sound swallowed by the thundering of her heart. When he looked at her again, his voice softened, barely above a whisper. No one touches her. The words, 6 simple syllables, reverberated through her, anchoring her in a world that had spent years unmooring her. And though she did not know his intentions, nor what claim he had to make such a declaration, the night changed in that single breath. For the first time since her exile began, Evelyn felt a faint tremor of hope stirring beneath the wreckage of her composure. She dared lift her eyes fully to his. The moment stretched, fragile, electric, until a sudden movement behind her made her flinch. Her father, Lord Hawthorne, had appeared, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. His hand tightened on her shoulder, fingers digging into silk and skin. "You will return home at once," he hissed. "This spectacle ends now." Before Evelyn could respond, the Duke stepped closer, his voice low and immovable. "You will not lock her away again." And the ballroom fell silent. The ballroom seemed to inhale as the Duke's words reverberated through the gilded air, and for a fragile moment London society teetered between outrage and awe. Lord Hawthorne's grip slackened, more from shock than compliance, yet he stepped back as though scorched by the Duke's calm defiance. Evelyn felt the absence of her father's grasp like the release of shackles, though fear curled beneath her ribs. Her freedom, however fleeting, now hung in a precarious balance, one man's protection set against another's authority. She swallowed hard, aware that every eye tracked her as though she were the night's most precarious entertainment. The Duke inclined his head toward her, silent permission to step away from her father, and the choice trembled in the air like a live ember waiting to fall. She moved toward him. It was not bravery, she thought, but the faint instinct to cling to the only person who had not flinched at her presence. The Duke offered her his arm, and though propriety demanded she decline, she placed her hand lightly upon his sleeve. Gasps fluttered like startled birds. The music resumed hesitantly, its rhythm uncertain, as though the violinists themselves were torn between duty and fascination. The Duke's stride was steady, unhurried, carrying her past clusters of whispering guests who parted as though afraid to brush against scandal. Evelyn kept her eyes forward, sensing her father's fury burning behind her, but the Duke's presence acted as a quiet shield, an unspoken vow that she would not face the night alone. When they reached the edge of the ballroom, he offered her a moment's refuge near an alcove draped in ivory curtains. Candlelight haloed his features, revealing a face both disciplined and unexpectedly gentle. "You need not fear," he murmured, his voice measured, as if he wished to soothe without drawing further attention. She opened her mouth to answer, but words clung to her throat, tangled in years of silence. Before she could muster a reply, someone jostled them deliberately, a baron known for his fondness for scandal and wine. He stumbled with theatrical exaggeration, knocking Evelyn off balance. She grasped instinctively at the Duke's sleeve, steadying herself. The baron smiled with poisonous charm. "My apologies. The floor is treacherous tonight." His gaze dipped to where her hand rested against the Duke's arm. "Or perhaps some cannot stand without support." The insinuation was clear. A few nearby guests exchanged delighted glances, already preparing the tale for morning gossip. The Duke's jaw tightened imperceptibly, then he extended his hand toward Evelyn with formal precision. "Would you grant me this dance?" His request was immaculate in its courtesy, yet beneath it lay a challenge, a declaration that he refused to let malice define her evening. Evelyn hesitated only long enough to feel the tremor of her heartbeat before placing her fingers into his palm. The Baron's smirk faltered as the Duke guided her toward the center of the floor, where the orchestra, sensing a moment of significance, shifted into a waltz of low, sweeping grandeur. Evelyn had not danced in 5 years. She feared her feet would betray her, but the Duke's lead was steady, a silent assurance woven through every careful step. The room blurred at the edges as they moved, her breath mingling with the soft rustle of silk and the distant shimmer of crystal chandeliers. Though she kept her gaze modestly lowered, she felt the weight of the crowd's scrutiny, the prickle of curiosity sharpened by malice. Yet, for the first time that evening, fear did not own her entirely. The Duke's gloved hand at her waist held no claim, only respect, as though he wished to remind her that she still possessed grace the world had tried to strip away. As the dance slowed, he released her with the same measured delicacy, and for a moment she felt suspended in the warmth he had offered. Not heat, but something gentler, like the first touch of sunlight after a long winter. Before they parted completely, he slipped something into her gloved hand. She stilled, startled by the intimacy of the gesture. When she glanced down, she saw the fragile shape of a pressed white rose, petals perfectly preserved. A thin ribbon secured a note to its stem. Her breath caught. Gifts exchanged in public carried weight, and this one felt heavier than any jewel. She dared not read the note immediately, but her fingers closed around the token with quiet protectiveness. Whispers thickened in the air as they exited the floor. A rose. How bold. He cannot be serious. She will ruin him. Evelyn heard every word, each laced with disbelief and envy. The Duke did not acknowledge the murmurs, but his gaze lifted over her shoulder, sharpening with sudden alertness. She followed his line of sight and saw her father striding toward them with unmistakable purpose, his features thunderous. Her stomach twisted. The brief sanctuary she had found in the Duke's presence seemed to evaporate under her father's looming displeasure. Lord Hawthorne halted inches away, voice low enough to mask fury beneath civility. "You forget yourself, Evelyn. This spectacle ends now." His glare shifted to the Duke. "And you, your grace, overstep." The Duke's reply was quiet, razor-edged. "I act only where injustice demands correction." Lord Hawthorne's eyes flicked to the rose in Evelyn's hand, his expression tightening into something that bordered on shock and fear. Before he could speak again, a servant hurried to his side, whispering urgently into his ear. Whatever message he heard drained color from his face. Without another word, he turned away, leaving Evelyn trembling in confusion. The Duke stepped closer, his voice low enough for her alone. "Your father departs not from surrender, but from threat. Someone arrives tonight whose presence he did not expect." Evelyn's pulse stumbled. "Who?" The Duke's gaze darkened. "The man responsible for your ruin." And as the murmurs swelled once more around her, Evelyn felt the fragile promise of safety waver, the darkness of her past stepping unmistakably back into view. The night wind pressed cool fingers against Eleanor's cheeks as she stepped onto the terrace, her breath trembling in the hush of the garden. Moonlight lay across the stones like scattered silver, softening the world into something that almost felt merciful. Almost, but not entirely. Behind her, the soft laughter and music from the ballroom pressed like a reminder of everything she had fled, everything she had endured, and everything she had just risked by escaping her uncle's watchful grasp. Her fingers still shook from the memory of Lord Ashcombe dragging her by the wrist through the crowd, her dignity stripped bare before the eyes of the ton. She had thought herself strong. She had managed 5 years of silence. Yet one night in public had nearly broken her again. Then she heard the steady tread of boots behind her. "Miss Eleanor." His voice. The Duke. Adrian. Every muscle in her body tightened, though not from fear this time. She turned slowly. He stood framed by the doorway, the warm glow of chandeliers behind him, his expression unreadable yet devastatingly intent. He removed his gloves with slow, deliberate movements, as though giving her time to compose herself, or perhaps offering her the courtesy of choosing to send him away. She found she could not. "Your Grace," she murmured, bowing her head. "I should apologize for leaving so abruptly." "You should do no such thing," he replied, stepping toward her until he reached the edge of moonlight. "You have apologized far too much in your life already." Her lips parted in a silent breath. Something in his tone, firm, gentle, painfully sincere, unsettled her in a way that felt both frightening and liberating. She turned her face toward the balustrade, fingers brushing the cool stone. "It is unseemly for me to be out here alone with you. If anyone sees—" "If anyone sees," he interrupted softly, "they will see only a woman who needed air, and a man who wished to ensure she was safe." He stepped closer still. "And they will say nothing, because I will permit nothing." His nearness warmed her, though the night was cold. She swallowed, forcing back a tide of words she had held for years. "People talk about a great many things, Your Grace. They invent what they do not know. They assume what they never witnessed. They speak with certainty of matters they have no right to judge." He studied her face, as if searching for the layers behind her trembling voice. "Then tell me what they should know." Her breath hitched. "I cannot." "You mean you dare not." He paused, then added quietly, "And I understand." The admission, so gentle, so without pressure, broke something inside her. Her eyes stung. "My uncle says I am unwell," she whispered. "That I require supervision. That I cannot be trusted to behave in society." "And do you believe him?" the Duke asked. "No," her answer came fast, fierce, the truth she had buried too long. "But he holds the power to make others believe it. He always has." The Duke's jaw hardened. "Eleanor." Her name, spoken without title, wrapped around her like an offered cloak. "What did he do to you?" The question hung in the night air, heavy as unshed tears. For a heartbeat she said nothing. Then, like a dam beginning to crack, her words emerged in a thin, trembling thread. "My parents died when I was 16. I was sent to live under his guardianship. He was strict, but I thought it was grief that made him so. Then the rules grew stranger. I was not permitted callers. Not permitted letters. Not permitted to walk the grounds alone." Her breath trembled. "I became a prisoner in all but name." The Duke did not speak, but his eyes darkened with quiet fury, his shoulders tensing as if restraining the urge to find her uncle that very moment. She continued, her voice almost breaking. "When I turned 17, a gentleman expressed interest in courting me. My uncle overheard and told him I was mentally fragile, that I suffered spells, that my company would be a burden to any man." She let out a shaky breath. Within days, every household in the county believed the same. The Duke's hands curled around the terrace railing, pale knuckles betraying the violence of his anger. "That is a cruelty beyond forgiveness." "It was effective," she whispered. "I was hidden away for years. And every time I asked why, he would tell me I was not ready for society, that I would embarrass myself or ruin the family name." Her voice fell to a whisper. I began to fear he was right. Adrian's voice turned low, rough with conviction. "He stole your freedom. He stole your confidence. He may even have stolen your future. But he did not steal your worth." His gaze caught hers with heartbreaking intensity. "I saw you tonight. I saw courage in every breath you took." A tear slipped down her cheek. "You do not know how frightened I was." "I know how brave you were," he countered. "Bravery is not the absence of fear, Eleanor. It is the act of stepping forward despite it." His thumb gently brushed the tear away. "And you stepped forward." The contact, so tender, so reverent, sent a shiver through her. She stared at him, unable to speak. For a moment the world held still, the whisper of leaves, the glow of lanterns, the soft thrum of her heartbeat in her ears. Then he murmured, "There is more you are not saying." Her throat tightened. "If I speak it aloud, I fear the world will change." "Then let it change." She drew a trembling breath. He plans to marry me off. To a man of his choosing. Someone wealthy, someone who does not ask questions. Her voice cracked. Someone who will not care if I disappear again within the walls of a new home. The Duke's entire body stilled. And did he choose the man already? She nodded. Lord Ashcombe. The Duke inhaled sharply, quiet but unmistakably murderous. Eleanor looked away. I cannot run, Your Grace. I have nowhere to go. And if I resist, he will say I am unstable. He will have me locked away. He has threatened it before. Adrian stepped so close that the warmth of his breath brushed her temple. Eleanor, he whispered, each syllable a vow, you will not disappear into any man's walls. Not while I draw breath. Her heart hammered. You speak boldly, Your Grace. I speak truth. She swallowed, her voice barely audible. And what would you have me do? He reached for her hand, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She did not. Trust me, he said. The words, simple, impossible, dangerous, settled into her like a spark touching tinder. She looked up at him, moonlight catching her tear-bright eyes. And in that still, breathless moment, the garden door swung open behind them. A voice, sharp with triumph, cut through the night. So, this is where you've been hiding. Eleanor froze. Her uncle stood in the doorway, and his smile was poison. He found her near the broken fence, arms wrapped tight around herself as if holding back something about to spill. The wind had quieted, but the air still trembled with the weight of whatever she carried. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her, sensing the tension coiled beneath her stillness. You disappeared for hours, he said softly. I thought. He stopped, letting the unfinished fear settle between them. She lifted her gaze, exhaustion hollowing her eyes. I needed space, she murmured, though her voice held more truth than the words allowed. She seemed to debate whether to keep her story buried or finally let it breathe. I wasn't running from you, she whispered after a moment. I was running from what I remembered. He felt the shift instantly, a quiet quake beneath her confession. He stayed still, giving her room, knowing she needed someone who wouldn't press or question too soon. You asked why I flinched this morning, she said, voice trembling. It wasn't because of you. Someone else used to shout before things got worse. And I still hear it. He swallowed hard, anger and sorrow threading through him. But he stayed silent, letting her choose how much to reveal. Before I came here, she continued, I thought survival meant staying quiet, staying small, trying to avoid notice. But then I ended up somewhere being invisible wasn't enough. Her breaths thinned. I was promised safety. I got the opposite. You don't have to explain everything tonight, he offered. I do, she insisted. Because you've been trying to help me without knowing what you're up against. His pulse quickened. Who's looking for you? Fear flickered across her face. Someone who doesn't let go of what he thinks he owns. The words chilled him. You are not something to be owned, he said, firm and certain. Tears gathered in her eyes. He threatened to find me. Said I wouldn't get far. Said no one would believe me. I believe you, he said immediately. Something in her defenses weakened. When he reached out, she didn't pull away. His fingertips brushed her arm, a trembling connection that grounded them both. You deserve peace, he said. Tell me what you need from me. I need to know I'm safe, she whispered, and that you won't turn me away when things get worse. I'm not going anywhere. She breathed in slowly, as though absorbing the promise. Then her expression shifted, heavier, bracing. There's something I haven't told you. I didn't want it to change how you see me. Whatever it is, he said, I'm here. She closed her eyes. He didn't just hurt me. He made me believe I was worthless. And I'm scared that if you know everything, you'll see me the way he did. His chest tightened. He cupped her cheek gently, her skin cold beneath his palm. I could never see you that way, he whispered. Not after everything you've survived. A tear slid down her face. He brushed it away. You're stronger than you think, he added. Braver than anyone who tried to break you. She leaned into his hand, barely but unmistakably. Then I need to tell you the truth, she said. All of it. Because he's closer than you think. The night seemed to contract around them. What do you mean? He asked. Her breath hitched. I saw him tonight, watching the house. The confession loosened something between them, and she shivered as though exposed to the night air. He draped his jacket over her shoulders, and she clutched it tightly, absorbing its lingering warmth. I keep expecting him to appear, she said, voice paper-thin. Every sound feels like a warning. Every shadow feels like him. She glanced toward the tree line. I sleep in fragments. I wake before I remember where I am. You're not alone anymore, he said. That's what scares me, she whispered. If he finds me here, he'll destroy everything around me, including you. He won't, he insisted. You don't understand what he's capable of, she said. He knows how to twist people, how to make them doubt themselves. He made me believe I deserved everything he did. You didn't, he said softly. She swallowed hard. I know that now, because of you. Because you never made me feel small. Her voice cracked. And that's why I need to tell you the rest. She inhaled shakily. I didn't just leave him. I escaped. I ran after he hurt someone who tried to protect me. Her hands tightened around the jacket. I don't know if they survived. He felt the weight of her words. You did what you had to. If he finds me, he won't hesitate to hurt anyone who stands with me. He took her hand, and after a moment, she allowed it. We'll face this, he said. Together. I don't want you risking everything, she whispered. I already have, he replied. The moment I cared. A fragile breath escaped her. Then you deserve the truth. He nodded. Tell me. Her eyes shifted toward the house, then back to him. What I saw tonight, it wasn't just him. She paused, as though the very act of saying it aloud invited danger closer. Her grip on his hand tightened, and he felt the tremor running through her arm. They were standing near the edge of the property, she continued slowly. I couldn't see their faces, but I recognized the way one of them moved. The way he tilts his head when he's searching. She shivered. He was looking for me. He always looks first at the windows. He felt a surge of protective fury. You should have told me immediately. I was afraid, she whispered. If I spoke it, it would become real. It's already real, he said. But we're not powerless. Her eyes lifted to his, fragile and fierce all at once. Then me, she said. Promise you won't face him alone. The cold satisfaction in her uncle's smile tightened the night air like a noose. Eleanor felt the world constrict to a single instant, the Duke's hand holding hers, her uncle's silhouette gleaming with authority, and the fragile breath between them that threatened to shatter into ruin. She tried to step back, but Adrian's fingers tightened just enough to steady her, not restrain her. A promise in a touch. Her uncle's eyes flicked to their joined hands, and triumph sharpened into something darker. I should have known you would find a way to disgrace yourself, he sneered. After all the trouble I took to keep your tendencies hidden. Eleanor flinched, but Adrian spoke before she could gather breath. Your niece has done nothing disgraceful, he said, voice calm but edged like a blade. She stepped outside for air. I merely followed to ensure she was safe. Her uncle's laugh was soft, poisonous. Your Grace, I fear you have been misled. Eleanor is not, how shall I phrase it, capable of such judgment. She is given to spells, confusion, emotional outbursts. His gaze cut toward her like a lash. She cannot be trusted alone with gentlemen. Eleanor's nails bit into her palm, but Adrian's voice, low and unwavering, reached her. Then I wonder, he said, stepping forward, how she has managed a conversation with perfect lucidity. Her uncle's expression hardened. I will not stand here and debate her condition with you. She is my ward, and she will come with me. When he reached for her arm, Eleanor recoiled instinctively, a small, terrified movement, but enough to ignite something dangerous in Adrian's eyes. Do not touch her. The words were quiet, but they carried the force of gunfire across the terrace. Her uncle froze. She is my responsibility. No, Adrian replied. She is your prisoner. The accusation struck the night like lightning. Her uncle's face flushed scarlet. How dare you? I dare, Adrian said coldly, because she told me the truth. Eleanor's breath caught. Her uncle's gaze snapped to her, horror twisting into fury. You spoke to him? You ungrateful. Enough, Adrian snapped. I will not permit you to threaten her. Her uncle jabbed a finger toward Eleanor. She has ruined herself. She was to be married to Lord Ashcombe next month. A favorable arrangement, until she decided to wander off with you. Eleanor's lungs tightened painfully. Married, Adrian repeated, voice deadly soft. To that man. Her uncle lifted his chin. Ashcombe is wealthy, respectable, and willing to overlook her shortcomings. You, however, are nothing to her but a passing fascination. Adrian took a single step closer, and the night seemed to tilt around him. If you believe that, he said, you are a greater fool than I imagined. Her uncle's sneer deepened. Regardless, she is not yours. Eleanor felt the words like a blow. Not his. Not anyone's. Caught between two forces that demanded ownership. A lifetime of being spoken for, never spoken to. And suddenly, something inside her snapped. Stop. The word trembled but rang clear. Both men turned. For the first time in years, she lifted her chin, even as her heart pounded painfully. I will not be bartered. Not by you. Her uncle's eyes widened. Eleanor, you kept me hidden, she said, voice strengthening with every word. You locked me away and told the world I was broken. But I am not broken. Tears trembled at the corners of her eyes, but they did not fall. I am done being silent. Her uncle's face contorted. You foolish girl, say another word, Adrian warned, stepping in front of her, and I will have the magistrate summoned before you draw breath again. Her uncle scoffed. No magistrate would believe her. He would believe me. Adrian's voice deepened with command. And the entire ballroom will serve as witness to how you dragged her away like a criminal. Your reputation will not survive the scandal. For the first time, her uncle's confidence faltered. You would ruin my name? You ruined hers for 5 years. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then her uncle spat, You will regret this, and turned sharply, storming back into the ballroom. Eleanor's knees nearly gave way with relief, but Adrian caught her gently. It is over, he whispered. But she shook her head, breath trembling. No, not yet. He studied her a moment, then nodded, understanding. Then tell me what remains. She swallowed. When he realizes he cannot force me home, he will try something worse. He will claim I am unstable. The law will listen to a guardian over a ward. Adrian exhaled slowly. Unless, he murmured, you are no longer his ward. She blinked. What do you mean? He took her hands, both of them cold as moonlight. Eleanor, there is one way to protect you entirely. A way he cannot contest. Her pulse fluttered wildly. Your Grace, let me finish, he whispered. I do not speak from impulse. From the moment I saw you across that ballroom, I knew something deep within you called to me. But tonight, on this terrace, I have seen your courage, your spirit, your heart. And I cannot, will not, allow you to be taken from your own life again. His voice dropped to a breathtaking softness. If you wish it, I will offer you my name, my home, my protection. Her breath caught, the world narrowing to his steady gaze. Marriage, she whispered. Only if you choose it, he said. Not as escape, not as obligation, but as the beginning of something neither of us expected. The garden seemed to hold its breath. Eleanor closed her eyes for a trembling moment. She felt the weight of 5 years on her shoulders, the loneliness, the silence, the shame. And then she felt something else. Like hope. The terrifying, beautiful possibility of freedom. She opened her eyes. Yes. The word was barely a whisper, but it was everything. Adrian exhaled, a sound like relief breaking open. He lifted her hand and brushed a reverent kiss across her knuckles. But before he could speak, the garden gate slammed. They turned as Lord Ashcombe strode into the lantern light, fury twisting his features. "So," he snarled, "the little bird has flown the cage." Eleanor stiffened. Adrian stepped forward, voice a thunderous warning. "This conversation is over." "No," Ashcombe hissed. "It is just beginning." He reached inside his coat. Eleanor gasped. Adrian moved, and the night shattered.